Welcome in. Thank you for joining us for the TDX graveyard session. We have about 40 minutes here, but we'll get you out in 25 or so we can get you traveling home or get you to happy hour. I'm excited to chat with you all about 3 ways that you all can use Tableau to creatively deliver business insights to your stakeholders. Before we begin, just a reminder, please make all purchasing decisions based on products we already have in market. Luckily, everything we're going to be talking to you about today is in market, so you don't have to worry about that. First and foremost, thank you. Thank you for being at TDX with us this week and for taking the opportunity to connect. My name is Joe Constantino. I'm a product manager at Tableau, focusing on Tableau Agent and some of the conversational analytics experiences that we're building across the portfolio. And I'm joined by Shern Jahal, principal engineer who's building a service called VizQL Data Service, which you're going to hear a lot about. So we're all here at TDX this week to talk about the future, right? The future of Salesforce, the future of software development. But before we jump into the future, I do want to reflect for a moment on the past, and specifically on Tableau's past. Tableau exploded onto the scene about 20 years ago because it was the best tool for visually exploring your data. And because of that, a lot of our data fam, this is what we call our community of builders, you started to do data modeling in Tableau, right? And Tableau's enriched kind of its connectivity and data modeling layers over time to support this. But the Tableau published data source became this artifact where all of you would model your data, where you'd connect to one or more sources of data, describe how to relate them together, define hierarchies and groups and calculations and aliases. In short, this is the place where a lot of you imbue business meaning onto your raw data. And when you do this, you distribute these published data sources to your organization, and then people only have to worry about dragging pills on shelves, right? It's how you empower your organization to do self-service analytics. And this is the power of VizQL. It's that ability to just drag a pill on a shelf and have a complex semantic query generated that respects all that data modeling logic you've defined and modeled. But there's a problem, which is until today, those data models, those Tableau published data sources, they've got all that rich business meaning and business semantics. Well, they've been a walled garden. They've only been available within Tableau workbooks and more recently, Tableau Pulse metrics. But what if we could give you the ability to extend those business semantics? What if we could give you the ability to have programmatic access to your data using those same semantic models and then use that for any custom workload? This could be a BI use case, like building a custom reporting app, but it could be totally decoupled from BI as well. Maybe building a product catalog page or integrating with your data science team's notebooking experience. Really, the opportunities are endless. And this is all possible now through a service called VizQL Data Service. What's great about this is it's also awesome for agents and AI. So the VizQL Data Service is this connective tissue between Tableau data models that you've spent a lot of time and energy and investment in authoring over the years, and the LLM and agentic app dev frameworks where a lot of you are already working. These certainly could be Agentforce, which we'll show a demo of. But this is also the open source frameworks, places like LangChain and Llama Index. VizQL Data Service is our commitment to also being open, extensible, and composable with these frameworks and tools where you're building agentic apps and experiences. Over to Shern to talk a little more about VizQL Data Service.
So Joe's kind of given us the history, how we got here, the why, the how. I want to talk about the what. What is VizQL Data Service? So it's a new Tableau service that sits alongside our existing REST services. Hopefully, you've all used our REST services. They give you this power and functionality to explore all of your information in a friendly, easy to use REST interface. So VizQL Data Service is also an HTTP-based service that sits alongside it, but it's not really a REST interface. It's more kind of like an RPC style interface that uses HTTP and JSON as its content type. It uses the standard Tableau authentication mechanisms to authenticate. So there's no change in how you authenticate against your Tableau server. And like I said, it's kind of RPC based. So there's two primary endpoints that we have. One is called read metadata, and it's used to basically access the metadata of a published data source that you want to run queries against. And the second interface is called query data source, and that's where you actually do the heavy lifting, the querying of your published data source to extract information. As you're going to see, we've provided a very simple and well-defined API for query semantics that we hope you're going to enjoy. And I want to say that we're shipping now, and we are available both on Tableau Server and Tableau Cloud in the 2025.1 release. So we're going to go through 3 demos here today. The first demo is going to be a show-off of the API in Postman. The second demo, we're going to show you how you can take VizQL Data Service and integrate that with agents and Agentforce to discover new ways of exposing your data to your customers. And then finally, we're going to finish out showing some integration of VizQL Data Service with various AI technologies, including LangChain, which we have open source libraries for that we're providing. So off to our first demo. All right, so here we are in Postman. And as I said before, we use the same authentication mechanism that we use for the rest of our Tableau REST interfaces. So we have a copy of that right here. And as you can see, it's your standard personal access token authentication. We're going to send that query, and just like that, we're authenticated against our Tableau server. We've taken an access token and automatically moved it into our Postman environment. And now we're going to run through parts of the API. Now, API queries are always made against a specific Tableau published data source. So we're going to use our favorite Superstore data source to run all of these examples. And we've already gotten the data source ID for that data source and glued it into our environment. You'll see a data source section in the queries, but we're not going to talk about that. It just magically happens because you picked the right data source. So what I'd like to do is show you our first query that we're going to make. And I'm not going to say anything about it. I just want you to kind of look at it and see if you can kind of guess what we're trying to say here. And I'm going to run it. And I hope you thought that you were going to see sum of sales by category, which is what we're trying to accomplish here. So like I said, we're trying to keep the API simple and very easy to understand. So a query is comprised primarily of fields and filters. We're going to talk first about fields. A field has 3 different flavors to it. The first flavor is where you just reference an existing field in your data source, such as category. The second flavor is where you reference a field in your data source, like sales, but you also provide an aggregation, a simple aggregation to it, such as sum of sales here. And there's a fixed set of aggregations that match the same aggregations that you're hopefully used to in Tableau. So that's the first 2 types of fields. The third type of field is a calculation, where you can provide your own specific calculation that you would like to do, and we support the entire Tableau calculation semantics, with the exception that we don't support table calculations because they're a different beast. And when you provide a calculation in the API, since it's not really tied to a specific field, you actually give it a field name of your choice, which in this case is AOV, because I'm trying to calculate my total profit by my number of orders, or as most people call it, AOV. So we're going to run that. and you'll see here's our value. So that's fields. That's pretty much most of everything that you need to know to get going. Now we're going to talk about the second part of queries, which is filters. So as you can see here, a query is a list of fields and a list of filters. This list of filters can contain as many filters as you want. In all of my examples, there's only going to be one filter because I'm trying to keep it simple and stick to the specific filter type. So the first type of filter that we're looking at is called a set filter. And this is where you can take a specific field and specify a list of values that you want to filter on from the total domain of possible choices. So in this case, we're looking at ship mode, and we're filtering on only first class shipments. And we're, in the field part, going to look at basically our sum of profit by state. Now, you'll notice up in the fields section, we've added a couple new properties there, sort priority and sort direction. So we support multi-column sorting. So for every column in the sort, you would give it a different sort priority. In this case, we're only sorting on one column, so we can give it any arbitrary number. We chose 1. And the default sort direction is in ascending order. But in this particular case, we want to sort descendingly, and so we provided a sort direction of descension. So we run that query. And what you can see is our sum of profits by state, listed from most profitable to least profitable. Our next kind of filter is a quantitative numerical filter. This is a filter where you have a number and you want to filter on maybe a minimum value or a maximum value or a range of values. And in this case, we're filtering on a range of values of sales between $1,000 and $10,000. And when we run that, you'll see that we're going to get output very similar to the first query I ran, except that the numbers are smaller because we're only looking at sales within that range. Now, alongside quantitative numerical filters, we also provide quantitative date filters, which have the exact same format where you can specify a minimum date, a maximum date, or a range of dates to filter over. But there's more interesting ways to filter on dates, and that is the relative date filter. So a relative date filter takes an anchor point in time and either looks forward or backwards some certain amount. So in this case, we're anchoring on January of 2024, and we're basically saying, hey, give me that current month. So this is basically, give me the month of January 2024. And we're gonna take the sum of sales by order date, and we're sorting the order date from earliest to latest. So when we run that, you can see that we've got all of our days for January sorted in order from first to last. Our next filter is a match filter. And a match filter basically allows you to take a string and match against either a start with, an ends with, or a contains. And in this case, we're trying to look for products that contain the string Ticonderoga. Maybe some of you might know what those products are. Let's run it and find out. And as you can see, Ticonderoga is actually a company that makes pencils. Our last filter that we're going to look at is a top-end filter. And this is where you can find the top or bottom number of relationships between a field and a field to measure. So this is basically saying, hey, show me the top 3 states by their total profit. So which states are the most profitable? And we've basically organized the fields up here to match so it comes out in a nice human readable format. So when we run that, you will see that the top 3 states are California, New York, and Washington in order of profitability. Now, that pretty much covers most of the API. There's a little bit more, but that's it. Hopefully you can see that it's very simple and easy to use. But there's more that you can do with it than just running queries. So I want to take you on a little story about how one might take advantage of this in their work environment. Let's pretend that we are tech people in the back office of a company that has a sales department. And we've built a Tableau dashboard with all sorts of numbers on them that give them statistics about their current sales. But there's one number in particular that they're really interested in, and that is their monthly sales number, because they've got a monthly sales target that they're trying to meet, and they really want to know how close they are and when they've actually met that sales target. Now, we don't want to have them to actually have to keep looking up at the dashboard every day to see if they've made it. Wouldn't it be great if we could notify them when they've actually met their sales target? And so what we've done here is create a VizQL data service query that matches the same metric that is on their dashboard. And for example's sake, I've created a Postman post request script that basically takes the value from that query and checks it against their monthly sales target, which is $80,000 a year and a month. And if they've met their sales target, it will actually generate a Slack notification so that everybody in the company knows, hey, we made our numbers. So we're going to run that, and I direct your attention to the lower right-hand portion of the screen. And there it is, sales target reached. Everybody's happy, they can relax for the rest of the month. And that concludes my demo. Oh, thank you.
Cool, thank you, Sharon. Great, so you might be thinking like, why would I do that when I could just write like SQL queries against my cloud data warehouse or something like that? And I think there's two things I want to call out. One is guaranteed consistency. So by standardizing on the semantics that are powering the dashboards and the insights that you're proactively distributing to your business users, you're guaranteed to get consistency in the numbers, in the analysis that you're running through this programmatic access to the underlying data. And the second is better semantics. We talked about how you're doing a lot of semantic modeling in Tableau published data sources. And when it comes to AI, that's critical. So that's what I want to jump into now. I want to show you how you can connect the VizQL data service to Agentforce to build agents that can transform natural language questions into grounded answers using your Tableau data. So the first thing I'll do to get this working is implement this flow, okay? Flows in Salesforce can be used as actions that agents can take. And so what this flow is doing is it's chaining together a few custom Apex classes as well as LLM prompts to do that transformation of a question into a VDS query request. I'll go ahead and run this so you can kind of see it in action. I'm running it with the question, what is profit per segment? I've added my authentication variables that I need there. And now we can inspect this. So did we get the answer? Yeah, we got our answer. So let's go through each step in this flow. The first step is an Apex class that just generates a session token for being able to interact with a Tableau server environment. We generate that token and we'll use it in the subsequent steps in our flow. In the second step, we're calling the get metadata endpoint provided by VDS to get really contextual metadata about the data source we want to query. Why is this important? Well, think about what we're doing, right? We're taking a natural language query and we're trying to turn it into a structured query against a data set. We better make sure that the caption names we use are cased correctly and spelled correctly, or any references to field values that we use to filter are the exact strings that actually exist in the data. So what we do in this step is we query for that metadata ahead of time so that we can ground any requests that we send to an LLM on that necessary metadata. The next step in the flow, this is our LLM prompt. So this is taking the metadata that we just queried in the previous step of the flow, applying it to a prompt that instructs a model how to transform a query, a natural language query, to a JSON object that that the VDS query payload accepts. Our fourth step is to actually execute the post request. And the final step is another LLM prompt, which just provides some specifics around how we want the output parsed and the answer presented to the user. And that's it. We've now got our flow, and it's available in Agentforce through this action that I've built. And if it's an action, I can configure an agent to use it. So let's take a look at this default agent in Agentforce. We'll open it up in Builder. And what you can see is this agent has a few built-in topics. If you're not familiar, topics are, think of them as jobs to be done that an agent can take. So in this case, this agent can query for and summarize CRM records. But I've given it access to a new topic, which is answer analytical questions with Tableau. Within a topic are actions. Think of these as the specific functions or capabilities that an agent can invoke. And here's where we see that VDS flow, that Tableau VDS flow. All right, I've just exposed this agent on my org. And now, when my stakeholders are looking at these pre-built dashboards and insights that I've built, if they have questions about the underlying data, something that I haven't already configured an answer to, well, they can just go ahead and ask that. Like, what are the top performing Superstore product categories? Well, let's actually leave a typo here. By in each region. So what our agent is going to do is it's going to introspect on those topics that it has access to. It should determine that the most appropriate thing to do is invoke that Tableau VDS flow because I'm asking a question related to the retail data that I gave it access to. It should invoke that flow. And to determine, okay, so it's asking a follow-up to determine the top performing product categories in a specific region. It's telling me what it's going to do, but it looks like it didn't actually execute the query. Let's try that one more time. What are the top selling product categories by region? Giving it one more chance here. Okay, that looks right. Analyzing relevant data. Again, going through that, that analyzed data with Tableau topic. And there we go. It executed a VDS request using that same framework that we just saw from Shern and is giving me the answer directly there in chat. Awesome. Okay. Just one quick transition slide for you guys, and then another demo. So, you just saw how we added VDS to Agentforce so we could make our agents in Agentforce data-driven and capable of answering analytical questions. We know that a lot of you are also experimenting with or already building in open source frameworks like LangChain. So what we wanted to do was put a public open source Python package into this open source project so that you can quickly get started building agents in LangChain that also leverage the power of Tableau in your VizQL data service. Let's take a look at that. So if you go into the LangChain open source project and you search for Tableau, that's not right. Tableau. Okay, the search on GitHub's not working, so let's hit a back arrow here. Okay, what you would find is this Tableau notebook. This notebook shows you how you can get started using our open source packages. Get started building agents in LangChain using our open source packages. I'm going to go ahead and download this file and show you what it would look like to get started from scratch. I will bring this onto my desktop. Let's launch Jupyter Notebook. All right. And what we're going to see here is how we're using just the base Python packages provided by LangChain and that new open source package that we contributed to build an agent that can answer data questions, similarly to what we just saw in Agentforce. I've already installed these packages, but I'm going to just make sure that I have the latest version of our open source package. Cool. And then I'm going to read in the variable, the classes and the functions that I need. This is our open source package, initialize simple data source QA. That whole flow that you just saw in Agentforce is encapsulated here in this function. It's the same idea. I'll go ahead and read that in. Now I'm going to define some environment variables. We've abstracted away the complexity of how you authenticate and generate session tokens and query for read metadata and then apply that metadata to to an LLM prompt. All you have to do is supply your environment variables. We're using job-based authentication. So I'll go ahead and run that. And now what I'll do is instantiate this open source tool, right? And I'll store it in a variable called analyze data source. All right, we've got our tool. We've authenticated with our variables. Now let's build an agent. LangChain makes it super easy to get started with an agent like Agentforce. Here I'm just using a base class that they provide called create React agent. This will create an instance of a React agent using the model that I want it to use for reasoning, and then the tools that I want to give this agent access to. In our case, that's just that VizQL data service Q&A, data source Q&A tool. Then I'll invoke our agent with a custom message. Let's ask it which states sell the most, Don't want you to see the answer. We'll ask it which states sell the most, and are those the same states with the most profits? I think this is a good example of a question like a business user is really likely to ask, right? This is a business question. It's a compound question. It's not asking for analytical things like sorting or filtering. And what this agent is going to do is break down this question, and we should get a long response here. This is all the work the agent did, but what you guys care about is the actual answer. So I'll just display a nice human-readable answer there, and there we go. What the agent actually did was decompose that query into two tool calls. So it looked at the states with the most profit, queried for that, and then it looked at the states with the most sales and queried for that, and did a comparative analysis. It's giving me the summary right here. All right. So that concludes our demos. And yeah, thank you guys for being here. I'm really excited the potential that VizQL Data Service has for you all to do really creative things and extend your business semantics for custom experiences and custom workloads, including agentic ones. So yeah, happy to take any questions. There's a mic right here, and we'll also hang out after the session. Thank you.